So, hey everybody, and welcome to another AzBytes. I'm John Lunn, and today we've got a hot topic that affects a lot of businesses running SAP. Did you know that SAP's classic ERP, which is called ECC, lots of acronyms, is going to hit end of life support in 2027? So it's a bit like a ticking clock for many companies. So if you're an executive or an IT manager, you'll want to hear this.
Hi everyone, I'm Ty, your usual host with John as well, and in this episode we're going to break down why moving your SAP workloads into Azure is such a compelling idea. We're talking cost savings, scalability, performance and security and all that good stuff. And what's with the 2027 SAP deadline means to you. This isn't just tech gibberish, it's business strategy, fun with a twist.
Absolutely. And we've got a special guest on to help us, John Bartlett, an Azure specialist who's been in the trenches of SAP on Azure projects. So welcome, John. How are you doing?
Yeah, very good. Hi, John. Hi, Ty. And thanks for having me. I'm excited to chat about the business case for SAP on Azure. We'll cover everything from the urgency of SAP ECC's end of support to RISE with SAP and S/4HANA, plus some real life examples. So should be a really good conversation.
It certainly should, John, and that's awesome. So let's dive in with a big question first. Why should a business run their SAP systems on Azure in the first place? John?
Yeah, you're going to have to say John 1 and John 2, I reckon. No, it's a good place to start. Go on, John Bartlett. Give us the rundown. So what key benefits do companies see with SAP on Azure?
Sure. Yeah. So one of the biggest draws is cost savings. Running SAP on Azure can significantly cut infrastructure and operating costs. So, for example, one company managed to migrate their entire SAP estate to Azure and saw a 60% reduction in infrastructure costs, plus 50% lower total cost of ownership. So instead of buying and maintaining expensive servers, you pay for what you use in the cloud. Azure even has tools like TCO calculator and cost optimization recommendations to help with that.
Now that's some serious saving, John. But what about scalability?
So Azure gives you on-demand scalability type, and that on-prem data center can't easily match. So if you need more processing power or storage for SAP, you can scale up on literally minutes within Azure. A manufacturing company called Kennametal found that by hosting SAP on Azure, they could scale up and down in minutes, deploy applications faster, and that agility means that you can handle seasonal peaks of growth without upfront hardware investments.
No, absolutely, John. I think the agility side of hyperscalers, it really is a game changer. So, what about talking around performance and security? Really two critical concerns most businesses have. How does Azure perform with heavy SAP workloads, and is it secure enough?
Yeah, so good questions, John. So Azure's been designed for business critical applications like SAP. It offers high performance virtual machines that are certified by SAP, including large M series VMs with up to multiple terabytes of memory for HANA, and even purpose-built options for SAP HANA. So many customers report improved performance, reliability after moving to Azure. For instance, Acme migrated their SAP systems to Azure VMs and ended up with a powerful, scalable infrastructure with reliable performance and lower operational costs. On the security side, Azure provides multi-layered enterprise-grade security. So you get features like network isolation, encryption, threat detection, and a broad compliance portfolio. In fact, Azure offers multi-layer cloud security for both SAP and non-SAP workloads out of the box. So Microsoft invests over $1 billion every year in security. So your SAP data is protected by some of the best in the industry. Plus you get to integrate Azure security with SAP's security like using Azure Active Directory for single sign-on. into SAP is one of the reasons SAP trusts Azure. It's a preferred cloud platform with over 30 years of close SAP Microsoft collaboration.
Wow, there's a lot of information there, JB. But in summary, we're talking cost savings, scalability, performance, and security, and we've just ticked all them boxes. But there's also a time-sensitive reason companies are considering this move, the 2027 deadline for SAP ECC support. So, John L., why don't we talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, it's probably worth pointing out, Ty, you're right. So, for those that really haven't heard, SAP's ECC, the ERP central component, and the SAP Business Suite, they're approaching end of support. JB, can you explain what's happening in 2027 and why is that so important?
Yeah, absolutely. So SAP have announced that it will provide mainstream support for SAP ECC and the Business Suite core applications, but only until the end of 2027. So after that, standard support ends. There is an option to extend that maintenance until 2030, but it comes at a premium cost. So an additional 2% on maintenance fees. So essentially, after 2027, you'll either need to be on SAP S/4HANA, the next generation ERP, or be prepared to move to legacy support. And even that safety net is likely to disappear in 2030 or soon after that.
Wow, so 2027, that's the date to remember, guys. And it's effectively the deadline for migrating off ECC. But with only a couple of years away and big ERP systems and migrations out there, that's very short time. JB, what do you think?
Well, exactly. I mean, these projects can take 1 or 2 years, or even more for a large enterprise. So businesses really need to start planning now. If you wait until 2026 to think about it, you'll automatically be in rush mode. Executives should treat this as a strategic initiative, not just an IT upgrade. It's an opportunity to modernize business processes, but you need to put a roadmap together early on.
Yeah, no, absolutely good, vital information, John, and I guess that's where moving to Azure can help, right? Because if you have to migrate to SAP for HANA anyway, then you can do the infrastructure transformation at the same time. Is a good way to look at it.
Yeah, exactly. Many companies are aligning their S/4HANA migration with a move to cloud. So doing it on Azure means you don't have to invest in a new on-prem hardware for S4, which could be very costly for the HANA in-memory requirements. So instead, you leverage Azure's SAP certified infrastructure on a pay-as-you-go model. Plus, Azure has services and experts to assist with these migrations. So Microsoft even worked with SAP on the Embrace initiative to help ECC customers move to S/4HANA on Azure smoothly. The key message and takeaway is don't ignore the 2027 deadline. Use it as a catalyst to transform and consider doing it on Azure to get those cloud benefits that we mentioned.
So JB, you mentioned moving to S/4HANA. SAP has an offering called Rise with SAP to help customers on that journey. Can you help me understand what Rise is and move into Azure as well?
Sure. Yeah, so Rise with SAP is essentially SAP's bundle subscription that basically is a service that's helped to facilitate a business transformation into the cloud. So people call it business transformation as a service. So what is included is SAP S/4HANA, the software itself, usually in a cloud edition, optional SAP business technology platform services, and a set of tools and services to simplify the move. So with Rise, SAP basically says, we'll be your simple hand to shake for the contract. So covering software, licensing, technical support, cloud infrastructure, which can be on Azure as the underlying platform, and even some initial technical migration services.
Oh, great stuff. So SAP basically handle a lot of that heavy lifting, right, John? So, and can you choose Azure as a cloud where your S/4HANA runs under the hood? Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. So RISE with SAP on Azure means SAP manages the S/4HANA environment, but it's hosted on Azure's infrastructure. So that gives customers the best of both worlds. SAP's direct involvement and Azure's reliability in terms of the cloud platform.
And JB, there's other things that I'm hearing. So can you help me put it into context? What's SAP Active Methodology?
SAP Activate is the implementation methodology that SAP provides to guide projects like moving to S/4HANA. It's a structured framework with defined phases. So things like prepare, explore, realize, deploy, and so on. And it comes with best practice and templates. So under RISE, SAP has an enhanced active roadmap tailored for cloud migrations. The idea is to give customers a clear path to follow. RISE with SAP's methodology provides the guardrails and clear steps to accelerate that transformation. Using SAP Activate as the backbone, it includes an integrated tool chain, which is process analytic tools, automation, testing, and expert guidance from SAP and partners at every stage.
So with RISE and Activate, a company gets a standardized framework for the move, which can obviously reduce the risk of that migration because you're following that proven approach, right, John?
Exactly. Think of it this way. RISE with SAP provides not just the S4 software in the cloud, but also a prescribed journey to get there. So with SAP and partners helping, and when Azure is the destination cloud, Microsoft works closely with SAP in that whole process. So in short, RISE with SAP and Azure is equal to SAP's expertise on top of Azure's cloud transformation foundation.
That's brilliant, that JB. Thanks. Now we've talked a lot around the moving or the why, but we need to talk around the why, should I say? So let's have a look why S4 HANA is better than the old EC systems from a business perspective.
Great question, Ty. So SAP S/4HANA is SAP's next generation ERP, and it's a big leap forward from ECC. So firstly, it runs exclusively on SAP HANA in-memory database, which means you get everything in real time. No more waiting for overnight batch jobs to run reports. You get real-time analytics and insights on live transactional data. Executives can literally see up to the minute financials or inventory data and make quicker decisions. So secondly, S/4HANA has simplified processes and a cleaner foundation data model. So SAP cut out a lot of the old complexities, like aggregate tables, redundant data storage, which makes the system more efficient and the processes faster. Many routine tasks are automated or streamlined. And one example benefit reported by S/4HANA customers is optimized business processes and faster access to analytics compared to the old systems.
And I did hear that user experience has been improved as well, John.
Yes, S/4HANA uses SAP Fiori as the user interface, which is a modern, user-friendly, unlike the old SAP GUI. Think of role-based app-style screens, even mobile access. It's much better experience for end users, and that can boost productivity and user adoption.
So JB, that sounds pretty cool to me, but what about being future ready?
So S/4HANA is often called the digital core for future innovation. It's designed to easily connect with cloud services. IoT, AI, machine learning, advanced analytics. For instance, integrating S/4HANA with AI or predictive analytics is far easier than with ECC. So SAP has made it the center of their intelligent enterprise strategy. So in fact, SAP has committed to keep innovating S/4HANA with new features until at least 2040. So it's a platform you can grow with for literally decades. So in short, S/4HANA, you get real-time decision-making capabilities, simplified and automated processes, a better user interface, and a system ready, whatever tech comes up next, AI, advanced analytics, etc. And when you run S4 on Azure, you empower it further because you can literally then tap into Azure services like Azure AI, Power BI to extend those real-time analytics and innovations even more.
No, it's good to hear, John. And so I guess it's basically like aligning your core business software with the future, right? So no wonder companies are making the leap. Speaking of companies, John, do you want to briefly jump into some real industry examples, maybe, and just skip through a few, retail industries, manufacturing industries? That might be a good idea.
Absolutely, yeah. Let's look at a few different industries and give some examples. So, Walgreens Boots Alliance, a major retail pharmacy chain. Also look at changes in new production demands, and Azure's reliability also helps ensure that their factories and operations keep running smoothly without downtime. One other example in the financial services is a company called Swiss Re. So even heavily regulated industries are benefiting. Swiss Re, a large reinsurance company, moved its SAP S/4HANA environment to Azure during an IT modernization. They minimized operational costs, implemented automation, and even set up a one-click disaster recovery solution on Azure. Think about that. A financial services firm trusting Azure for something as critical as disaster recovery on SAP. It really does speak to the confidence in Azure's reliability and compliance. And another financial example is Acmia, an insurance company, also migrated multiple SAP workloads to Azure and got a scalable infrastructure with lower costs as a result.
No, amazing stuff. These examples, are really great, John, and they're spanning different sectors. We've had retail, manufacturing, insurance, and the story is all similar. Really, kind of achieving that scalability, performance, cost efficiency improvements on Azure. So it's not really just theory, right? It's happening in the real world.
And guys, just so that I'm clear and everybody else is, the examples of the move into S4HANA actually include upgrade of the software and infrastructure all at the same time successfully?
Exactly. They all illustrate that with the right planning and support, even large enterprises can modernize to S/4HANA on Azure and see tangible benefits.
No, great stuff. Look, now maybe quickly, let's just delve into and address the elephant in the room, really, that migrating a huge ERP system, it can really sound scary to a lot of companies. So should we touch on what are the common concerns that you've heard, John, from customers, and really how do we go about addressing those?
Great point, John. So the common concerns include things like it's going to be too expensive, it's going to be too complex. What if something breaks and we have downtime? Will it cost a fortune for us to migrate? How will our people cope with the change? So we should probably tackle them one by one. So in terms of that migration complexity, yes, SAP migrations are complex. They are manageable though, and the key is planning and using the right tools. We start with a thorough assessment on the current SAP environment. There are SAP and Azure assessment tools that can analyze your custom code, data volumes, etc. And with that, you decide on the migration approach, either a brownfield conversion, upgrade your existing system to S/4HANA, or greenfield, where you start fresh and migrate data. So methodologies like SAP Activate provide a step-by-step roadmap, and Microsoft's cloud adoption framework for SAP gives best practices for moving SAP to Azure. You don't do it all alone. You engage SAP specialists, Azure engineers, and experienced systems integrator partners. So it's like climbing a mountain with Sherpas. You know the path. Complex, but with guidance and the right framework, absolutely doable. So the next one is downtime and risk. So nobody wants a failed go live. To reduce risk, companies often use a sandbox, dev test, prod, migration sequence. So rehearsing the customer multiple times. Azure makes it easier because you can spin up multiple testing environments. And in addition to that, there are also techniques for near zero downtime. So for instance, SAP has tools like Software Update Manager with near zero downtime options, and many Azure SAP customers set up robust DR, disaster recovery, as part of the migration. Swiss RE's one-click DR is a really good example. So they know they have fail-safes. With proper planning, we've seen customers migrate over a weekend with minimal business impact.
And JB, if something does go wrong, I'm imagining that support from Microsoft and SAP is a massive comfort to them organizations.
Absolutely, yeah. So when you run SAP on Azure, you have support channels into both companies, and they have cooperative support agreements, so you won't be left hanging. We also recommend migrating non-critical systems first, or doing a pilot to build confidence before that big mission critical system moves. Migration costs is the other key area. So yes, moving to S/4HANA and Azure has a cost, but consider it against the alternative. Upgrading your on-prem hardware for S/4HANA is extremely expensive. Those in memory servers, etc., plus continuing to operate ECC could incur extended support fees after 2027. So in contrast, migrating to Azure turns a lot of that into OPEX, so operational expense, and often lowers the ongoing cost. Remember that in the Darnitzer example that I gave earlier. So they cut their TCO by 50% moving to Azure. And also Azure has funding programs and pricing benefits. For example, if you have existing Windows Server or SQL Server licenses, Azure Hybrid Benefit can save on costs. And you can optimize cloud costs by right-sizing your VMs and using Azure reservations for discounts. So yes, there's an investment to migrate, but done right, it pays off through lower TCO and avoiding the do-nothing penalties. So another area, just moving into the change management piece, and that's specifically around people, that one's crucial. So moving to S/4HANA is not just a technical upgrade. Many processes will change, hopefully for the better, and users will have a new interface, theory. Companies need to invest in training and change management. The good news is S/4HANA's improved UX means often users are like a new system once they learn it. So under SAP Activate, there are activities for users enablement and training. And one advantage of SAP Rise with SAP is you may get some enablement tools like SAP Enable Now or Walk Me for an app guidance to help users through the new processes. Internally, leadership should communicate the vision that the transformation will empower employees with better tools, real-time data, less manual work, and the list goes on. Some companies run the old and new systems in parallel for a short time or phase the rollout by module to ease the transition. So with solid change management, employees will adapt and eventually appreciate the new modern system.
No, it's really great points, John. So basically, plan early, test thoroughly, leverage that expert help, optimize costs, and take care of your people to adopt. Yeah, so that's a recipe for a smooth migration.
And plenty of these companies have done it successfully, no doubt with tools and toys, as we've discussed. So it's proven that we can overcome these challenges in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. No, great stuff. So, let's maybe quickly move into the why Azure for SAP. What are those unique advantages that Microsoft's cloud kind of holds? We've touched on this kind of throughout this conversation, but let's summarize why Azure is particularly strong choice for SAP workloads. JB, what do you think?
First, trust and experience. Microsoft and SAP have a decades-long partnership, over 30 years of close collaboration and co-innovation. Azure was one of the first clouds to run SAP HANA, and SAP themselves use Azure for some internal systems. But this partnership means that when you choose Azure, you're choosing the cloud platform SAP trusts and works closely with. In fact, SAP named Microsoft as a preferred cloud partner when they launched the RISE program. Secondly, SAP certified infrastructure and performance. So Azure offers the broadest range of SAP certified VMs, whether you need a small VM for a dev test or a monster 24 terabyte memory VM for a huge S/4HANA workload, Azure has it. There are even SAP HANA on Azure large instances, so bare metal offerings for ultra big workloads. You can run Linux or Windows for SAP. Azure supports both and is certified for NetWeaver, S/4HANA, both ways for HANA, you name it. And Azure's global network of data centers means that you can deploy your SAP close to your users in many regions, reducing latency and improving performance.
So JB, some amazing information there, which I'm sure that our viewers are going to love. But what about hybrid capabilities? Some customers aren't 100% cloud and they may never even get there.
Azure is very strong in a hybrid. With Azure Arc and other services, you can manage on-prem or other cloud resources through Azure. For SAP, this means you could keep some systems on-prem if you must for regulatory or other reasons, and still integrate or manage them in a hybrid architecture. So also Azure has solutions like Azure Stack that could run SAP in your own DC, data center with cloud consistency. Moreover, Azure's storage and networking can extend to on-prem for backup or integration. We even have an Azure Center for SAP Solutions, a service that lets you treat SAP as a first-class workload in Azure, simplifying deployment and management across your landscape. Hybrid is a big differentiator. Microsoft knows not every workload moves overnight, so we meet customers where they are.
No, absolutely, JB. And I guess it's important to point out that Azure Stack, I think it's just been rebranded relatively recently to Azure Local now, but the same kind of reliable, trusted hardware for that on-prem hybrid scenario. But I guess just picking up on a point you mentioned briefly earlier, but that integration with Microsoft's ecosystem, that's a big win, right?
Exactly. If your company uses Microsoft software, and most do, think Office 365, Teams, Power BI, etc. Having SAP on Azure opens up seamless integration opportunities. For example, you can integrate SAP with Azure services like Microsoft Entra ID, Azure AD, for single sign-on and identity management, Power Platform for building low-code apps on top of SAP data, Power BI for analytics, and even Microsoft Teams or Excel for end-user interfaces. Microsoft also provides connectors and best practices for those integrations. A concrete scenario is a sales manager could approve an SAP workflow through Teams interface or analyze SAP financial data in Power BI in real time. Azure also connects well with SAP's own cloud offerings, like SAP Business Technology Platform, providing a flexible architecture, even if you're mixing SAP and Microsoft tech. So in short, Azure helps break down silos between your SAP data and the rest of your enterprise IT.
Wow, that's amazing. And guys, I can hear us viewers out there saying, what about innovation? And no conversation is complete without mentioning AI. So JB, what do you think?
Definitely. Running SAP on Azure means you have over 200 services at your fingertips to innovate on SAP data. Want to apply AI, machine learning to your ERP data? Azure's got cognitive services and Azure machine learning. So with the data in the cloud, you can feed it to the Azure Synapse Analytics or Azure Data Lake for advanced analytics. Microsoft is even weaving SAP with its new AI offerings. For example, using Microsoft 365 Copilot or Azure OpenAI on SAP data, you get conversational insights. That's cutting edge, but it's the direction things are headed. And Azure makes it possible because your data's there and the services are also there. So lastly, to reiterate, security and support. Azure's enterprise security and compliance certifications, so ISO, SOC, industry-specific ones like HIP, AA, etc., are extensive. Secure SAP apps and workloads with SAP certified threat detection and response tools on Azure, meaning you can use tools like Microsoft Defender for cloud tailored to SAP. You have Microsoft's and SAP's combined support. All of those factors, partnership, performance, hybrid integration, innovation, security, make Azure a leading platform for SAP.
It's certainly a solid case for Azure, right, John? I mean, it's not really just lifting and shifting servers now. We're talking about really empowering your SAP to do more, once you've got it onto Azure.
Absolutely. And well said, John. Now, suppose our listeners are 100% convinced. What should they do next?
Yeah, good shout, Ty. So look, I think so far, just to kind of summarize and really look at those next steps, what we've learned, SAP on Azure can bring cost savings, scalability, performance and security, as JB just pointed out. The clock is ticking with that ECC support ending in 2027. And now is the time to start planning that move to SAP S/4HANA. Potentially using RISE with SAP and a guided methodology like Activate. And we've also heard and seen how companies in retail, manufacturing and finance and others have really succeeded, and we address common fears about those migrations. So if I'm a leader or an IT manager listening, I'm thinking, what are my next steps? JB, what advice have you got for those folks?
My best advice for a call to action would be educate and envision. So start by learning more. There are great resources out there. For instance, check out SAP on Azure Documentation Center on Microsoft Learn to understand the architectures and best practices. Read up on SAP's RISE offering and what a move to S/4HANA entails. So SAP's website and community have tons of info. That will help build a vision of the end state. Secondly, assess the situation. So engage with experts and do an assessment of your current SAP environment. Microsoft and its partners offer SAP on Azure assessment workshops. SAP has tools to check your ECC systems readiness for S/4HANA. So knowing your starting point is key. How much data, what integrations you have, etc. And then build a roadmap. Work with your stakeholders to map out a timeline. Maybe you'll have a target, a particular year or quarter for go live. So factor in time to try a pilot on Azure. For example, spin up a test instance of S/4HANA on Azure to get familiar. And Azure makes it easy to do a proof of concept without big upfront costs. That's also a good time to engage with a cloud architect or Azure SAP specialist like our team, so that they will help with designing the right Azure environment, sizing VMs, storage, networking, high availability, and a lot more. Leverage programs and funding. Microsoft and SAP are actively incentivizing this transition. So Microsoft's Azure Migration and Modernization Program, AMMP, often provides funding or engineering help for qualifying projects. SAP's RISE Acceleration Program and the Embrace Initiative, and Microsoft SAP collaboration, are there to assist customers in moving to S/4HANA on Azure. So don't be shy about tapping into these resources. They really do exist to make your project easier and cheaper. And then a couple of others, get the right partners. If you don't have the right in-house capacity, bring in a partner who's done SAP on Azure migrations previously. There are loads of certified Azure for SAP specialists. They can bring templates and automation, for example, scripted deployments with Azure that also supports via the deployment automation framework. And then plan for change. So start engaging your business leaders about the process changes with S/4HANA. Maybe identify champions in each department who will help drive user adoption. Early communication and training plans will really pay dividends later on.
That's some great stuff, John. Brilliant checklist. And I guess, any viewers of this video, they can learn more. Do you have any ideas for, who they should contact or how they can go about doing that?
Yeah, so for learning more, definitely visit azure.com/SAP. It's a hub with overview information and tons of customer stories to see how others did it. Like the ones we mentioned, there are also Microsoft webinars, workshops on SAP, and on Azure, you can sign up for all of those. So to get the ball rolling, you can reach out to your Microsoft account team or a Microsoft Azure partner. They'll be more than happy to discuss your SAP environment, the goals and the outcomes that you're looking to achieve. And if you're an SAP customer, also talk to your SAP executive about RISE and let them know that you're interested in Azure as the infrastructure. SAP and Microsoft coordinate on many of these projects.
Great stuff. Thanks, John. So ultimately, the message is don't wait. Begin your cloud journey for SAP now to beat that 2027 deadline and really position your company for the future. The combination of S/4HANA and Azure can truly transform your business operations in a positive way. So JB, thanks so much for sharing your expertise and insights. Really appreciated. I think our audience has got a really got a much clearer picture of what SAP on Azure is and what options they've got, both the why and the how, right?
Yeah, and thank you so much for having me. It's been really good chatting with you. I hope some of that helps demystify the topic and gets folks excited about the possibilities. SAP on Azure is a really powerful move. It's the right approach and it can be a really smooth one too.
No, great stuff, John. Really appreciate your time. And thank you to all our viewers and listeners for joining on this episode of AzBytes. If you found this helpful, give us a like and subscribe for more insights, with that business twist, right? So, and feel free to leave comments or any questions below. We'd love to continue the conversation. But until next time, thank you very much, John, for being an awesome guest this week. Stay safe and keep innovating. See you on the next episode, everyone.